All right, now that we're clear, we're not going after Nike. We need to figure out what kind of brands you need to go after. And of course, they should be smaller brands. Obviously, they are more likely to entertain an idea of working with a smaller influencer. They know they're not able to spend a lot of money and reach millions and millions of people at the same time. They may not have to reach millions and millions of people at the same time in order to make their revenues, because they are smaller brands and they're more likely to work with social media influencers that are smaller. Now, when you work with a larger social media influencer, there is a drawback, because influencers who have millions and millions of subscribers, they don't engage with their audience as much. They don't look through the comments. They don't know their audience as well, because it's a humongous audience. Smaller influencers are much more in touch with their audience. They interact with their audience more. They answer comments. They're on other social media platforms, interacting with them and making their audience fall in love with them on a real level. And the smaller brands love that. The smaller brands know that if they're going to spend a certain amount of money, and you might not bring them a million views, but if you bring them 10,000 views, the 10,000 views that you bring to them are going to be from people who are really, really going to like you and listen to you, and you're going to have a better connection with them than if we were to take a sample, a random 10,000 viewers or views from a larger social media influencer. So they know that the money that they're spending for per the same, let's say 10,000 or 1,000 views, are going to go much further, and they know that and they like it. So going after smaller brands is much easier for a few different reasons. Obviously, they are not as busy, not as many people are hitting them up, and they need you a lot of times just as much as you need them. They are smaller brands. They are trying to grow. They're not giants, so it is much easier. Now, there's also not 1,000 different departments that will be thrown you around, as we'll talk in a few classes within this course. Reaching out to a larger brand a lot of times means you have to go through a few weeks of just figuring out what is the right person to talk to. With a smaller brand, boom, right away there's usually one or two, or at least they all know each other. So if you got to the wrong person, they will know exactly who the right person is. So you only need to be sort of transferred once. So you spend much less time and you're able to get to the right person. They're more likely to have the contact information on their website. They're more likely to respond to their social media comments, and they participate in the social media more. So all of that stuff means that you have a much better chances of succeeding. Now, these smaller brands need to be the brands within your hyper niche. One of the reasons, and I have a whole course about this, one of the reasons to pick a hyper niche 3 levels down, 2 niches down, is because the brands that you would be working with or reaching out to become much more obvious. I give an example in that course about the client that I was working with, who wanted to talk about hiking. And this is only one niche level down, right? Exercise, hiking. And I said, you got to do one more. You got to want to do one more, because if you're going to go into hiking, the brands that you will be reaching out to are just too big and you're too small for them. Go one more level. And as soon as we figured out she is actually dedicated to the content for hikers over the age of 50, then all this whole universe kind of appeared of all these brands that will definitely appeal to her audience. And because of that, because of such a niche audience, they would want to work with her. The brands that are making oxygen tanks, right? The portable oxygen tanks that people who are older a lot of times need when they hike. The brands who make braces and special comfort shoes for walking. Something that young people don't need when they hike, older people do need when they hike. Those are smaller brands. They're trying to reach their audience. They can't advertise during Super Bowl or maybe on television at all. So they're looking for influencers like her. And of course, they're not going to pay millions of dollars either, but they will pay enough to pay her salary, especially if you're working with a few different brands. Now, let's go through 3 different categories, which you should consider. And we are going to start with obviously niche brands. When you're working with the brands that are in your niche, you're more familiar with each other. It's easier to find them. You're probably a customer yourself, or your viewers are customers that will mention this brand or those brands many times. If you go to events or conferences, those brands will be there. You will be able to approach them. It will be a very natural connection. So niche brands are basically a match made in heaven when you're in that niche. Let's move on to the new brands. Now, the new brands, this is interesting because new brands can grow really quickly. And also new brands a lot of times have a good healthy budget because somebody made an investment. They know they're going to be losing money when you create a new brand, and they're really trying to catch up to their competition and grow fast. A lot of times those brands will try to work with as many people as possible because every single view, every single set of eyeballs or set of ears, if you're doing a podcast, matters. So a lot of times it's important to keep your eyes open for the new brands. Again, if you're familiar with the niche, you should kind of know what's happening there. A lot of times one brand will spin off a smaller brand, or somebody who used to work for this brand creates a smaller brand, and this is where you approach them. They once they start out, they'll a lot of times work with whoever it is that's willing to work with them, even though you're a smaller influencer. So watch out for the new brands. And also add-on brands. The brands that don't necessarily sell like main products for your niche, but create add-on products or services. So, for example, one of my first sponsors that I had for my electric car channel was a brand that makes accessories for Teslas that are electric cars, right? So I'm not advertising Tesla, I'm not advertising BMW and any other brands that are too big. But this small brand that was trying to reach this, small electric car community, the community mainly consists of Tesla owners, and I had a good reach to. They were like, there's like only 10 of you guys for us to even work with. So of course, we're gonna try to work with you. We'll have a budget. At first they were obviously giving me their products, which was perfect because I didn't have to buy them for my Tesla when I had a Tesla. And later on, it converted into more of a kind of a money deal rather than just the samples deal. Though you still get samples from brands because they want to make sure that you're their customer. You want to make sure that you're their customer as well. There's also a bunch of different apps that people use for in automotive industry and really any industry. But these apps are also made by brands that are add-on brands. So this is where you should concentrate on because again, they're not big brands. They would like to advertise, and you're probably one of the few games in town influencers where they can advertise. And just like I said, they might not have money to advertise on radio and television, so they're concentrating on the internet. They're concentrating on social media platforms, and you might just be, one of the dozen or a couple dozen of influencers they can work with. So make sure to identify the brands in your hyper niche. I would just sit down and spend like a week. Well, I mean, not continuous week, but spend a week consistently adding to your list, creating a list and adding to the list of all the brands that you can think of. And of course, the first day you will fill it up, maybe 80%. But then as you're talking to people, as you're creating your content, as you're thinking about it, there will be, little by little new brands going to appear on your list. And, this list should never stop. As new brands appear, as you're dealing with maybe different types of products and services you're in hyper niche, or maybe you're pivoting a little bit, that list should always be refilled, and you should always be reaching out to newer brands to see if they want to work with you.